Okay, so this video is Asmongold's review for Final Fantasy Realm Reborn. And a lot of people want me to make the distinction between Asmongold and Zach Rohr. Sure, this is in the Zach Rohr channel, so this is not him being Asmongold. Even though I don't find there to be a tremendous difference between the two. It's like Asmongold is just a little bit more exaggerated, which is what a lot of streamers tend to do. They just like let loose a little bit harder when they're on stream. But, this is his review of Final Fantasy Realm Reborn. And this one's been a long time coming. I'm super curious to see what he has to say on here, but I'm not as curious as I used to be when he said that he was going to play the game, because like I said, I thought that he was not going to like it. I thought it was not going to be his thing due to the fact that it requires a significant amount of patience to get through the MSQ. And because of the way that I used to see him play World of Warcraft, I didn't think that he was going to be into it, but he was. And it's like, now that he's finished Realm Reborn, if he says in this video that he actually liked it and that he thought it was cool, and it's like, dude, when he gets the Shadowbringers, oh man. Not to mention even the moment, that magical moment at like level 55, 56 in Heavensward, when he gets to that'll also be interesting to see. But yeah, let's see what he has to say.
What's up, boys? About a month ago, I started playing Final Fantasy XIV, and a few days ago, I finished Realm Reborn. Today, I want to give you a review of that experience. I went through the whole story. I went through all of the post-Realm Reborn content. I did all of the raids, including all of the ones on Extreme with minimum item level and no echo in order to have as much of an authentic experience as possible. Did not do Savage Coils yet, however. And I have had a very good time. I think that I've actually really enjoyed myself. And before I get into, just in general, why I feel that way, I want to explain kind of what I went into it with the perspective of. Because going into Final Fantasy XIV, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, I had a million people telling me, oh, you should play this class, you should play on this server, you should play this way, you should keybind this way, you should play in this, with this action bar, you should play with this add-on, you should play with...
The Final Fantasy XIV community can indeed be a little bit overbearing. And this is with my limited experience, but yeah, I can imagine it. And it was interesting because when Asmongold tweeted saying that he was going to play it, there was like a million different people, like really well-known content creators saying, you should skip Heavensward, or you should play it like this, or you should do it this way. Because I remember seeing this and I was reading, the replies to his thread, and I was just, I think I retweeted and just said, how about you just log in and play the game and just like ignore all the stuff that people just log in and play the game. Just like don't even worry about it.
A boost, you should not boost, etc. Right? I had a million voices in my head, and a million more voices in my head, and I just was going insane having these people try to tell me exactly how to play a video game. And at a certain point, I just told myself, well, listen, I'm going to play it the way I want to play it. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And I heard a lot about the story of Final Fantasy XIV, and I felt to myself that this is a game that is primarily driven.
In the background, he has Final Fantasy XIV open. That right there is the Shadowbringers trailer.
Driven by that story, by that narrative process, and that's really what I want to focus on. So I played a lot of the game primarily as a single-player game. I went through the quests, I read everything involved, and the ironic thing is that if I wasn't streaming it, I would not have done that. And I feel like I've had a better experience because I did stream it, which is usually not the case with streaming video games, because whenever you're playing it off stream, you'll have more time to take everything in. But the reality is I know myself, and I wouldn't have read the stuff in the same way that I did whenever I saw it and I did it on my stream and experiencing it with you guys. So I want to talk to you guys all about...
It's actually a really cool experience. As someone who played through 14 with people from the 14 community watching me as I went along, it was a much better experience than if I had played it by myself. For sure, which is weird because a lot of people seem to tell you shouldn't stream it, you should enjoy it by yourself. I thought it was more enjoyable with people watching at the same time. And I'll tell you right now, unless something happens that prevents me from doing so, I intend to stream the entirety of Endwalker, my blind playthrough. because I just really enjoyed doing it with the community. Like, I thought it was really cool. And it was also good because I have a goldfish brain and I kept forgetting stuff. And people would tell me, like, hey, no, this is related to that other quest that you did before. Yeah.
Where those high points were, where the low points were, and just in general, kind of how I felt about the whole story. Now, if you want to take a broad approach to the Final Fantasy story, I find that one thing that's very interesting about it is that there are very few characters and very few forces in Final Fantasy that are purely chaotic evil. If you want to look at the Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart, there are very few pure evils in
Lawful evil.
Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of them, but in Final Fantasy, there are actually very few of those. And oftentimes, as you learn more about the story, you'll learn that many times the evil is misunderstanding, or the chaotic nature of something is misunderstood. And I find that to be very interesting, and I think also it lends itself to telling much better stories in terms of redemption and also in terms of retribution, because I find that to be much less common in Final Fantasy than it is in, let's say, World of Warcraft. And I've noticed that in many cases with the game, that this character that does this terrible thing is granted, they atone for their sins and they're sorry and they willingly turn themselves in. And I think that degree of redemption and that degree of kind of, I think, true moral grayness is, it lends itself to creating a more compassionate player base in a way, because I think that gives people the narrative idea inside of the story that sometimes whenever people do things that are bad, you might not necessarily understand exactly why these things are happening. And so it's kind of interesting to see how the player base is different from other MMOs, and see how some of that could be reflected from the narrative storytelling inside of the game, and how that imprints onto the player base. And
the first time that I heard him say this, I was like, I don't really agree with that. I don't know if that's the case, but the more I've seen, more people react to the story, the more I'm beginning to think, there's something there. There's definitely something there.
And I think for me personally, the high points in a story, I had a few high points in a story, definitely. I thought the one thing that was so fucking cool was Garuda, right, with the song and the music and everything like that. The fight itself was okay, it was fine, but I really liked the song for it and the music. And then later on doing...
For context, because I don't know if people here are familiar with it, but for context, I'll show you real quick what he's talking about. This is the Garuda music. And also remember the fact that Asmongold initially said that he did not like the music of Final Fantasy XIV. This is the Garuda trial. It's really good when it picks up. Like, look. Now fall. The soundtrack of 14 is just excellent. Excellent. So this is what he's talking about, just for context's sake.
Ultimate Weapon on Extreme, I thought that was really, really cool, just because of how flashy and just absolutely dazzling it was. And in the story itself, the narrative itself, when did I really find myself attached to it, and when did I really care? I think the first time that I found it to be very interesting, and I really thought it was cool, was in the Coils of Baphomet, or whatever you call them.
Coils is so important.
Whenever, Alphanod, the Redditor, and his sister, Alice, they meet their
Spoilers, by the way. If you've never played Final Fantasy XIV, he's going to go into some serious spoilers, so be warned.
Father, Louis Swan. And they're like, well, what the fuck happened? Like, how is Baphomet still alive? I thought you killed him. And, what happened all those years ago in Calamity? And then it just he just looks to the side. And then it fades out and it plays a full fucking CGI cinematic of this guy literally turning into a phoenix, a primal. The guy himself turns into a fucking primal and turns into a fucking Kamehameha bolt, pierces Baphomet's heart, fucking basically almost kills him,
Dude, this
and then
cutscene is so good.
rebirths the entire world. And to see that in an actual cinematic, whenever you don't really know what happened, it's very gray, and then just
See, if it was World of Warcraft, this would have happened in a book. And if you didn't read the book, you would never have even known it would have happened unless you watched like a Noble video or a Bellular video where they would specifically talk about it. But, you know, okay, I'm throwing shade. Sorry, my bad. I just couldn't help just like twisting the knife a little bit. Maybe I'm a little bad for doing that. I'm sorry.
find a story and realize that something that you thought was evil or whatever was actually just the most pure action that you could possibly take. I think that was just so incredible and so cool. And that was, in terms of like a, what's the word for this? In terms of a, like theatrical perspective, I think that was definitely a high point. But if you want to talk about like what really got me and what really made me feel like this story is fucking cool and this is like really special, is actually whenever you were going to the top of the fallen airship. Apparently there was like some big war and the dragons interceded in the war.
Midgard-Zomer?
This like giant dragon, like Midgard-Zomer, like wrapped himself around like the main like flagship, and the flagship went down and it killed everybody on the ship, obviously, and also killed the dragon. And but the dragon wasn't necessarily dead. Nobody really knew what was wrong with the dragon. Nobody knew what was going on. But there was an idea that the dragon was calling to the other dragons to attack this other place. So you go up, you ascend the top of the ship, and you finally get to the top of it, and you see the dragon, and the dragon's eyes turn red, and it starts talking to you. And the dragon, it was supposed to be fucking dead. And now you're just having this conversation with this dragon. And what I thought was so fucking cool about that is that, especially even in a game like Final Fantasy, it becomes even harder to do this, is that you have these moments in certain stories where the storytelling takes a story that has a scope of this and it turns it into this.
Yep.
And it's so hard to have a moment like that and have it be as pure and as sublime as it has to be in order for it to really have that.
Dude, you have no idea! You have no idea!
Real pure impact and that real emotional response. And I actually think that they did an incredibly great job with that. And that's where I really kind of got hooked, because I think to myself, like, where is the moment that takes the scope of what you experience, and it takes the mysticism and the mystery and the fantasy of the universe that you're part of, and it just multiplies it. And I thought of a few examples, right? I think that in terms of like a personal example for me, it was whenever I was off the coast of Westfall in World of Warcraft, and I just started swimming in a direction, and I found the Gurbashi Isle. And I thought I ran the game at level 11 or level 15 or something, and then I see these guys that are level 63 elites, and I'm like, oh my god, I had no idea what I was talking about. This game is way bigger than I could ever imagined. And if you want to talk about like narratives, like where's another narrative that kind of had this same idea? I can come up with like two examples that are very good, I think, to prove my point. I think that the first example is in Lord of the Rings, whenever Gandalf comes back in the Twin Towers, excuse me, the Two Towers, and he comes back, and they thought he had died, and he just, shows himself, fucking disarms everybody else, Gandalf, or, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas in just a split second, and he's like, I'm back, I beat the fucking Balrog. And this was just like, oh my god, right? Because you would have never expected this to happen. And it's like, it takes the scope of what Gandalf is, what he represents and everything, and it just makes the world so much bigger. And you have it that occurs in, again, like this very pure and this very, in a way, straightforward and sublime way. And I think that's just what's so special about stories like this. And another example of this that I can use is the clips in Berserk. Whenever, obviously, like Griffith, this is I think that it might be obvious here, but there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this.
Yeah.
So if you don't want any spoilers, you're probably already mad. But step away now. And anyway, Griffith ascends to becoming a member of the God Hand, and he becomes Femto. And all the way up until then, you were just fighting, Guts was fighting and Griffith fighting the Band of the Hawk, fighting like different random mobs. They fought Nosferatu Zod, but it was just like some random guy. And the eclipse, where you literally see Void and Slon and all the other members of the God Hand, and they're just there, and it just fucking happens, and it completely turns everything on its head. And again, it takes a world that's like this and it makes it like this. And I think that moment there really fucking got me. And that's something that I can't, I fucking loved it, man. And the thing is you have other stories that try to have a moment like that. But the reality is that a moment like that occurs in a way naturally. And whenever you force it, it's not real. And I think the best example of a moment like that was forced is obviously whenever Sylvanas breaks apart the Helm of Domination and opens up the sky of
that was so dumb,
of the Shadowlands. And of course it does
so
have that
dumb.
literal earth-shattering perspective to it, but it doesn't have that emotional it doesn't have that emotional connection where like you are it's like the painting where like man touches God, and it doesn't have that divine presence to it that I think a lot of the other previous examples did. And actually, I think when all of those examples, literally a divine presence. But the point is that's the point in the story where I really, really was engaged, and I thought that was really special and really cool. And other than that, I want to say the story in general, I think, was much better than what I had expected it to be. I think that especially for an MMO.
Yeah, because everybody keeps telling, oh my God, Realm Reborn is so bad. Realm Reborn is so terrible. Realm Reborn is this and that and the other. Like, I almost feel like a large portion of the 14 community is actually like bad advertisement for this game. Like, well, in another way, maybe it's actually good because people go in thinking, oh, this is going to be terrible. They go in prepared for like the worst story of their lives. And then suddenly it's like, this is actually pretty good. Like, I know what you're talking about. This is actually pretty good for an MMO. This is like the best. What do you mean?
I can see why so many people are they're invested in the story and why so many people care about it so much. And I'm not surprised. I think that it's incredible. I think it's very well designed. And I'll be honest, there are many cases in the story where I was very angry. I was like, just fucking kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. And, I think I probably would have been right, to be honest. But, that's the way the story goes. And it does make me very excited to see what Heavensward is going to have as well. Now, whenever you talk about like the combat itself, I think that the 2.5 second GCD, I knew assumingly like this is... people said the raids were hard. Like, there's no way somebody's going to say the raids are hard whenever you can only hit one button every 2.5 seconds. So I knew that there was more to it than that. And big surprise there was. I think the raids in general are very well designed. They're definitely not, at least the Realm Reborn ones. And again, this is excluding Savage Coils that I have not done. The Realm Reborn fights do not have the same type of like mechanical and DPS requirements that something like Mythic Castle-Nathria or Mythic Sanctum of Domination would require in World of Warcraft. But I think that it's kind of like comparing something that came out in like Wrath of the Lich King raids versus the Realm Reborn raids, and in that case it's much more of a closer comparison. So I do really.
And it's like, even though they have the scaling and the minimum item level and all of that stuff, like classes were different back then. Like classes now it's just a whole nother beast. Like even the spells that you had and the abilities and all of that, a lot of them were completely different from what you have now. So it's just very hard to compare to what stuff was back then. And I wasn't even around back then, but I've heard and I've seen like some of the older raids. It was completely different.
I look forward to doing more of the raids, and I felt like it's funny because as a tank, usually you just sit there and tank, right? That's about it. But we did Ramua, or the Forest Lord, the Lord of Levin, and
Ramu.
We did him, and it was like, again, right? This is what I used to have to do as a tank. Now I have to do this. And I'll admit, there was a little bit of growing pains there. It was hard for me to do, but I'm glad that
And this is just in Realm Reborn. Just wait until all of the other crazy raids that you have ahead of you.
I did. And I look forward to doing more fights like that as well. I think that there's a certain degree of overcoming challenges and winning in that way. especially whenever people know that something is difficult, and to overcome it like that, that's fulfilling to me, that I do find fun, and I think that a lot of my audience enjoys it as well. So I do really enjoy the raids. I think that's probably, if I had to say, like, why do I really, really like playing the game, besides the Gold Saucer, why do I really, really like playing the game? It's because of the raids. I think that the raids are the most enjoyable thing for me. They're the most fulfilling thing for me, and they feel the best whenever we complete them and whenever I get better gear. There's like little small things, right, where like I wish that the numbers in the game displayed differently, kind of more like World of Warcraft. I feel like the truth is that Classic WoW, I think, has the best floating combat text of any game pretty much ever. And I'd love to see that, every other game from the future, from the rest of the time, just take what Classic WoW does and just do that. But overall, it's not that big of a deal. And I do think that the less of an emphasis on damage meters in general and damage in general does allow players to focus more on the mechanics and take in the aesthetics of the fight rather than the specifics of the fight. And I think that does make for a more holistic experience. So overall, I've had a really great time. I think the story has been very compelling to me, and especially now that we're entering into Heaven's Ward. And
You guys remember? Oh, what the hell? You guys remember the Raw Bond cutscene? That's really good. That's the stuff that he's been watching.
I'm now talking to what's his name? I'm thinking of his name, Count Dripula. Count Four Temps or something like that. I don't remember. But yeah, that's basically where we're at now in the story. I did the whole Dark Knight quest line.
No, Edmund.
I think that was really fun. But it's funny for me to see that there's a lot of people that told me, oh, Realm Reborn is going to take you so long and you're going to get so bored. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm going to get bored? Like, this is literally a quest that takes me 15 minutes. Like, how am I going to get bored in 15 minutes? Like, you stupid? I did a achievement in WoW that required me to get 250,000 honorable kills. And in an entire day of farming, you would get maybe 1,000 or 2,000. Are you kidding me that I would get fucking bored? Not a chance. So I've really enjoyed that a lot, and I think all the little side activities like the Gold Saucer, like the Chocobo racing, etc., I find those to be very fun as well. And it sounds stupid, but I'm actually really excited for the jumping puzzles in the game. Apparently there's one in Stormblood or something like that I'm going to be doing. I watched Rich fail on it for many hours. So either way,
I've never done it. The Kugane lookout thing, I've never done it. But I think a big portion of why I haven't done it is because I've been doing it on controller, because I've been hearing people say that it's actually a lot easier to do on keyboard. One of these days I got to try doing it on keyboard.
I'm just having a good time. I'm enjoying myself. It's fun. I'm playing the game off stream and just trying to do what I want to do. And I've missed that a lot. Again, I think I say this in all of my videos as I'm wrapping everything up here. I'm not quitting WoW. I really enjoy WoW as well. But it's been great to be able to play something different and to have a different perspective on the game. And I think that it's helped me a lot. I really appreciate everybody who's been so supportive over this past month and everything, with just watching the streams and just being positive in general. Not only with the Final Fantasy content, but with the stuff that I did with WoW, and also the stuff that I did with New World 2. And I look forward to doing more things like that are different and more variety focused in the future. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the confidence to be able to do that. So thank you. And I also look forward to doing Heaven's Ward and getting, apparently if you get all the birds in Heaven's Ward, you get like this massive like golden mass, I don't know, like a golden Lugia pretty much. Like
yeah, it's so good.
One. That's gonna happen.
It's 100%. So good.
And I'm having fun, man. It's really enjoyable for me to just go through the game in the very, very measured way that I have, and just take every experience one at a time and try to do everything in the most authentic ways I can. So either way, I want to say thank you guys all so much for watching. I've really enjoyed the game, and I look forward to apparently doing the fun part of the game, because I enjoyed the post-Realm Reborn content. I thought it was completely fine. So if that was fun, and that was enjoyable for me, I fully expect that Heaven's Ward will be 1,000 times better, and I look very much forward to doing it myself. So that's about all I've got. I've enjoyed myself a lot, and I look forward to doing a lot more. So until next time, boys, peace.
That's really good. Looks like all of us that thought that he wasn't going to like it, because I'm sure it wasn't just me. A lot of us, I remember a lot of people in the 14 community thought that he wasn't going to like it. Looks like we were all completely wrong. And I see this as a very good thing. It's a very good thing. I'm glad he enjoys it. And I'm hoping that the community continues to be welcoming of new players, because I know that there's been some instances of gatekeeping and whatnot, of people being like, "Oh, we don't want the WoW toxic community up in here." I was like, come on now.